Picture this, it's your anniversary. You've been dropping hints for weeks about that special gift you've been eyeing. The big day arrives, and your partner rushes out, only to return with a wilted gas station bouquet and a half-hearted apology. Sound familiar? Welcome to the world of chronic avoidance. Today, we're diving deep into a behavior that's poisoning relationships and creating a cycle of frustration, resentment, and self-defeat. We're talking about men who avoid making decisions until the very last minute, forcing themselves into rushed, subpar choices. It's a pattern that leaves their partners exhausted, their families anxious, and themselves trapped in a loop of anger and self-pity. But why does it happen? And more importantly, how can we break free from this destructive cycle? Let's start by breaking down the mechanism. It all begins with a simple task: buying a birthday present, booking a family vacation, or fixing that leaky faucet. Harmless, right? Not when avoidance enters the picture. First comes the procrastination. Days turn into weeks, gentle reminders are brushed off, and that nagging task is pushed to the back burner. "I'll do it tomorrow" becomes the mantra, repeated ad nauseum. This avoidance creates a constant undercurrent of anxiety for the entire family. The unfinished task looms large, casting a shadow over daily life. Enter the partner, usually the woman, who's forced to become the family's project manager. She reminds, she nudges, she practically begs for action. But instead of gratitude, she receives frustration, anger, defensiveness. Or the woman starts to become lethargic, disconnected, and even physically unwell. The emotional toll of carrying the weight of unfulfilled promises and constant reminders begins to manifest in her own health and well-being. She feels like she's shouldering the entire burden of the relationship, constantly having to overcompensate for her partner's inaction. As her energy wanes, so does her enthusiasm for the relationship. The emotional connection that once held them together starts to erode. She might begin to withdraw, not out of spite, but because she's simply exhausted, mentally, emotionally, and physically. What might have started as simple procrastination has spiraled into a full-blown relationship crisis. She feels unheard, unappreciated, and alone, while he feels misunderstood and pressured, trapped in his own cycle of avoidance. As the deadline approaches, panic sets in. The once distant task now looms impossibly large. The avoidant partner enters crisis mode, overwhelmed by the pressure they've created for themselves. This is where the rushed, last-minute decisions come into play. A thoughtful anniversary gift becomes a gas station afterthought. A well-planned family vacation turns into an overpriced, underwhelming getaway. In the aftermath, we witness the collapse. The avoidant partner adopts a defeated attitude, wallowing in self-pity. "I can't do anything right," they moan, conveniently ignoring their role in creating the situation. This is the birth of the angry poor me, a toxic persona that serves as both shield and weapon. It deflects responsibility while lashing out at those closest to them. But what's really at the root of this behavior? Here's the revelation that might just blow your mind. These men aren't just avoiding decisions or responsibilities. They're unconsciously reenacting a primal relationship dynamic, the one they have with their mother. These men treat their partners the way they treat, or would treat if they dared, their mothers. The deflection, the anger, the passive-aggressive tactics, it's all a replay of unresolved maternal issues. When their partner asks them to make a decision or take on a responsibility, it triggers a deeply ingrained response. Suddenly, they're not dealing with an equal partner, but with the internalized image of a demanding, perhaps critical, mother figure. Let's dive deeper into the psychological mechanisms at play here. What we're witnessing is a phenomenon psychologists call transference. It's a process where feelings, attitudes, and expectations from past relationships are unconsciously projected onto current ones. During our formative years, our brains create a blueprint for relationships based on our interactions with our primary caregivers, often our mothers. This blueprint, or internal working model, becomes the lens through which we view all future relationships. When a man with unresolved maternal issues enters a romantic relationship, his brain unconsciously scans for familiar patterns. Intimate partnerships often trigger these maternal associations because they involve similar elements of care, dependence, and emotional intimacy. This is where it gets really interesting. The brain actually releases stress hormones in response to this perceived threat, activating the fight-flight-freeze response. That's why these men might react with 1. Avoidance, flight, procrastinating or refusing to engage with the task. 2. Anger, fight, lashing out at their partner for nagging them. 3. Paralysis, freeze, becoming overwhelmed and unable to make a decision. Now brace yourselves, because we're about to venture into even darker territory. Everything we've discussed so far takes on a whole new level of complexity and tragedy when the mother in question was a narcissist. In these cases, the avoidant behavior we've been exploring isn't just frustrating or relationship damaging. It can become downright abusive, perpetuating a cycle of toxicity that spans generations. Children of narcissistic mothers grow up in an environment where love is conditional, where their needs are consistently overlooked in favor of the mother's desires. They learn early on that their worth is tied to their ability to meet impossible standards or to make their mother look good. Fast forward to adulthood, and these men carry a heavy burden of trauma. Their avoidant behavior isn't just about dodging responsibilities, it's a deeply ingrained survival mechanism. When their partner makes a request or expresses a need, it doesn't just trigger memories of a demanding mother. It awakens a primal fear of never being good enough, of being engulfed by another's demands, of losing themselves entirely. The result, a toxic cocktail of avoidance, passive aggression, and emotional manipulation that can mirror the very narcissistic behaviors they grew up with. It's a cruel irony. In their desperate attempt to protect themselves, they risk becoming the very thing they feared. Now, here's where it gets really interesting and counterintuitive. You might expect these men to seek out partners who remind them of their narcissistic mothers. But more often than not, the opposite occurs. These men frequently develop profound narcissistic traits themselves, a defensive adaptation to their childhood trauma. And in a twist of irony, they often seek out partners who are the polar opposite of their mothers. They're drawn to kind, empathetic, and nurturing women, the very attributes their mothers lacked. But without awareness and intensive therapy, it sets the stage for a different kind of toxic dynamic. These men, carrying the weight of their unresolved trauma and narcissistic traits, often end up subjecting their partners to the very behaviors they experienced as children. The kind, empathetic partner becomes an unwitting target for their unprocessed pain and learned narcissistic behaviors. It's a cruel cycle. The partner, often an empath, tries to understand and heal the wounded man, unaware that they're dealing with deeply ingrained narcissistic patterns. They may find themselves constantly walking on eggshells, their own needs consistently overlooked or dismissed. This is why mother work is so crucial. It's not just about improving decision-making skills or communication. It's about rewiring these deep-seated relational patterns. For men who recognize themselves in this description, know this: you're not alone, and you're not doomed to repeat this pattern. The path to healing is challenging, but it's possible. It starts with acknowledging the depth of the wound and seeking professional help to process your childhood experiences. And here's a crucial plea. It's more than likely that this relationship you're in right now will end as it is, unsustainable and toxic. So please refrain from entering any new relationship until you are at least on a consistent, authentic, engaged path of healing. If you don't, you risk destroying anyone you're with, perpetuating the very cycle of harm that your mother inflicted on you. Breaking this cycle isn't just about your healing, it's about preventing further damage to others. For partners, this understanding is equally crucial. If you're dealing with a man who exhibits these behaviors, it's important to maintain your own boundaries and mental health. Encourage therapy, but remember, you're not responsible for healing his childhood wounds. To conclude, breaking free from this cycle isn't easy, but the alternative is a life half-lived, trapped in patterns that sabotage happiness and fulfillment. The journey of motherwork is challenging, but the destination, a life of authentic, mature relationships, is worth every step. It's time to take action and reclaim your well-being. If this video has resonated with you, take a moment to reflect. How might unresolved maternal issues be playing out in your own life or relationships? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found value in these insights, don't keep them to yourself. Share this video with someone who might benefit. Subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into the psychology of relationships. Remember, awareness is the first step towards change. By shining a light on these deep-seated patterns, we open the door to profound personal growth and more fulfilling partnerships. Until next time, stay curious, stay brave, and never stop growing.